Now on BBC One, the news with Nicholas Owen.
The army takes charge. Egypt's military dissolve parliament and say they'll run the country for 6 months. There was more tension in central Cairo as soldiers tried to move thousands of protesters out of Tahrir Square.
We don't want the army to take over. We want them just to stand guard as the people wait and demand from the army to execute our demands.
Civil partnerships. Why the ceremonies could be allowed in church.
Colin Firth, The King's Speech.
And the star of The King's Speech wins Best Actor at the BAFTAs. The film gets 7 awards in all. Good evening. Egypt's new military rulers have said they will dissolve the country's parliament and suspend the constitution, meeting 2 of the main demands of the protesters who toppled President Hosni Mubarak on Friday. The Armed Forces Supreme Council, which has assumed power, said it would run the country for the next 6 months or until elections can be held. Earlier in the day, there were scuffles in Tahrir Square as the army tried to move on thousands of protesters. Our Middle East editor, Jeremy Bowen, reports now from Cairo.
Cairo's remorseless traffic tried to reclaim Tahrir Square this morning, and so did the army. Some shelters were taken down. A few soldiers forgot they'd been ordered not to use force. Polite requests to leave didn't work. The remaining demonstrators refused to budge. But this is what made them really angry. A group of police, hated as the old regime's enforcers, coming onto their ground to claim that they were its victims too. The strain is showing. Resentment crushed during the repressive Mubarak years is pouring out.
There are a lot of grievances and a lot of anger in this country. There's also a lot of hope that their problems can be solved. If they're not, they've learned how to take to the streets, they've learned how to protest. All this could be a glimpse of the future.
Perhaps because of that, the army has accepted some of the protesters' main demands. It's announced it will govern for only 6 months or until elections are held. State TV read out the military statement. It also suspended the constitution, discredited as a tool to keep the regime in power, and parliament, elected in a rigged vote, was dissolved. There was a lot of satisfaction in this backstreet. Some of the plans for what became a revolution were made in this block of flats.
I think it's a great announcement. It's what we've been waiting for. I think the army is showing goodwill and saying we are on your side. Of course, we have been skeptical about their position, having people from the old regime in the army as well. But so far, they've been on our side, actually biased as well.
Towards you? You trust them?
Yeah, we do trust them, and I think we are starting to trust them more now.
In the cabinet office, it was out with the old, though not quite in with the new. Hosni Mubarak's Prime Minister, Ahmed Shafiq, stays on as caretaker, with other faces from the old regime. But in the street outside, signs of change. Still security police at Parliament's gates, but they were ignoring a demonstration at the Health Ministry opposite. Round the corner, employees at another government building had walked out. And outside the Interior Ministry, rank-and-file police were boiling with rage at their superiors. They put us in conflict with the people, then leave us here and run away. Demonstrators were still in Tahrir Square. Building the new Egypt will take time, but they're making progress. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, Cairo.
Well, our Middle East correspondent Wira Davis joins us now from Cairo. Wira, rather a different atmosphere there today from yesterday?
Indeed, and tonight Tahrir Square is the quietest it's been for the last 3 weeks. It's as though many of those thousands of demonstrators have gone home, back to their jobs, back to their universities, heeding the the reassurances, if you like, from the Military Council that elections will be held in a few months' time, and that this transition to democratic reform is genuine and that the whole country is behind it.
Any clues as to what may occur over the next few days, Wirra?
I haven't got a crystal ball, of course, but phase one is over. The demonstrators have got what they achieved, the end of the old administration, the end of Hosni Mubarak. Now everybody hopes that military administration or that authoritarian administration won't be replaced by another, and that there will indeed be genuine, free and fair elections in 6 months' time. A lot of eyes are still on what might happen next, and there are indeed just a handful of pro-democracy hardcore demonstrators now who say they'll sleep in the square tonight and the next night and the next night until those elections do take place.
Wirra Davis in Cairo there. Thank you very much. And Egyptian officials say several important pieces have been stolen from the Cairo Museum, which houses the treasures of Tutankhamun. Items taken by looters at the height of the unrest include 2 gilded wooden statues of the famous boy king. Here, the government has been defending its big society idea against Labour claims that it's too vague and a cover for spending cuts. David Cameron said the initiative to give a greater role for community and voluntary groups was intended to change the way the country is run. Here's our Deputy Political Editor, James Landale.
It's David Cameron's big idea to devolve power from the state to the citizen. His opponents say it's a cover for spending cuts, but he and his ministers say the big society will transform the country.
All the political parties agree that decentralising is a good idea, reforming public services to open them up, break the public sector monopolies, that's a good idea, support for voluntary and charitable organisation, that's a good idea. So no one's knocking the idea, but we need to put the pieces in place and have a bigger society which will replace the era of the big state.
So the big society is not just about encouraging volunteering, it's about giving people more responsibility. Patients having a bigger say in their treatment, parents a bigger say over their schools, and charities a greater role in providing public services. In a newspaper today, David Cameron said it's not another government initiative, it's about giving you the initiative to take control of your life and work with those around you to improve things. But some charities and social enterprises like this one in Liverpool feel the big society has failed to deliver.
Most of the people from social enterprises I've been speaking to feel very let down. They do feel as though it was a great opportunity missed. Not missed completely, we could still get back on track, but we've missed the first 9 or 12 months when we could have really made a difference.
So this week, Mr Cameron will take the fight to his critics, unveiling more details of a £100 million transition fund for charities facing cuts, details of how the so-called Big Society Bank may work, and who's going to be training some 5,000 community organisers to help spread the word. The problem David Cameron's got is that because he's struggled to get across his idea of a big society, he's allowed his opponents to define it for him. Labour, for example, say it's just a cloak for cutting back the state, a process they hope will lead to the recontamination of the Conservative brand.
It's too vague, people don't understand what it means. Centrally, that you cannot combine greater responsibility for civil society, voluntary and community organisation with cuts in the money that support them to do the work that they do.
The big society is misunderstood, says the government, misconceived, say its critics. Either way, David Cameron says it's here to stay. James Landale, BBC News, Westminster.
Police are investigating the deaths of 4 members of the same family. The bodies of a woman, a boy and a girl were found at a flat in Leicestershire yesterday afternoon. The body of a 32-year-old man was discovered at Watermead Country Park on Friday night. The deaths are being treated as suspicious. Thousands of Italian women took part in protests today against the Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi. The organisers say Mr Berlusconi has damaged the standing of women in recent alleged sex scandals. He has denied any wrongdoing. The government is considering lifting the ban on civil partnership ceremonies being held in places of worship in England and Wales. Some religious groups want to be allowed to carry out the ceremonies for same-sex couples. An announcement is expected in a week or so. Here's our religious affairs correspondent, Robert Piggott.
St Martin in the Fields in London, celebrating Evensong tonight, is one of many Anglican parishes impatient for the right to carry out civil vicar says he'd like to offer civil partnership services that were little short of full marriages.
What I'd hope for, but it will take time, is for people contracting same-sex civil partnerships to be able to come to church and make covenantal promises for life before God with their friends and get the support of the church.
In a similar way to ordinary married couples?
In a similar way to ordinary married couples.
It's likely that civil partnerships carried out here at the altar rail, like regular weddings, would not just be in church, but they would include religious music and readings and be carried out by a priest or minister. Traditionalist Anglicans say it's a clear step towards outright gay marriage, something which they would fiercely resist.
If indeed people wish to be married, then let it be a secular marriage. But as far as I am concerned, the word of God is very clear, and I think it should be a man and a woman that should be married.
With the matching clothes, the flowers and the rings, civil partnerships have become indistinguishable from civil weddings, since this first one took place in 2005. They give gay couples the legal protection of marriages, but any religious content is banned. Gay activists say that's not fair.
There are gay and lesbian people, just as there are people in the wider population who are devoutly religious and for whom this is a terribly important thing and it matters a great deal.
The Church of England has banned civil partnerships from its churches, and the Archbishop of York today warned against any law forcing clergy to carry them out.
And I, who lives in a liberal democracy and actually want equality with everybody, cannot say the Quakers shouldn't do it. Nor do I want somebody to tell me, but the Church of England must do it, but the Roman Catholic Church must do it. Because that's not what equality is about.
Progressive churches, such as Unitarians and Quakers, and liberal synagogues support same-sex marriage. Traditionalists take a starkly different view. For them, taking civil partnerships into church is just the latest sign of a secular society placing its priorities ahead of religious teaching. Robert Piggott, BBC News in central London.
An investigation has begun into the deaths of 2 horses at Newbury Racecourse. Racing had to be abandoned after the 2 collapsed and died yesterday, apparently after being electrocuted in a freak accident. Now, with the big sports news of the day, here's Ollie Foster.
Good evening, Nick. Thank you very much indeed. Hello there. After the second round of matches in the Six Nations Championship, England and France are the only teams still unbeaten. The French were in Dublin today, and though they only scored 1 try to Ireland's 3, they still won the match, but only just. Here's Kevin Geary.
It was an entrance full of intent, the walk rather than jog emphasising an Irish determination to put behind them a woeful performance in the win over Italy. And they didn't so much just start the match as rampage into it. Within 5 minutes, Fergus McFadden had burst over for a 7-point lead. But maybe the enthusiasm was too keen. Irish indiscipline presenting the rattled reigning Grand Slam champions sufficient penalties to put them in front. But Greater Irish adventure paid further dividends just before half-time. They almost made a mess of their opportunity, but Tomas O'Leary's wriggle to the line was confirmed as a try by the video referee. It should have provided a second-half platform. Instead, a simple missed tackle on Rougerie put Maxime Maydar away to give France the advantage once more. But yet again, Ireland came back, pressure on the French line, eventually allowing Jamie Heaslip just enough space in the corner. And they could have won it, but for a crucial dropped pass in the dying moments. Instead, it's France 25-22 winners who now share with England Grand Slam ambitions. Kevin Geary, BBC News.
There was one match in the Barclays Premier League today. Bolton beat Everton 2-0 in a mid-table tussle. Gary Cahill scored. Celtic finished the weekend as they started it, 5 points clear at the top of the Clydesdale Bank Scottish Premier League. Daniel Mojstorovic scored the best of their goals in the 3-1 win against Dundee United at Tannadice. Cardiff's Millennium Stadium has been hosting the first round of the new Super League season this weekend. There were wins today for Crusaders, Hull Kingston Rovers and a terrific comeback by Leeds Rhinos against their great rivals Bradford Bulls. They trailed by 18 points in the second half, but Rob Burrow scored one of their tries to pull themselves back into the match, and a late penalty try sealed the win for the Rhinos. 32-28 the final score. And that is all your sport. Nick.
Ollie, thanks very much indeed. Colin Firth has been named Best Actor at the BAFTAs on a night that saw the film The King's Speech take a fistful of prizes. Firth played King George VI as he struggled against a speech impediment. The film also won Supporting Actor awards for both Helena Bonham Carter and Geoffrey Rush, as well as a string of other prizes. Our arts editor Will Gompertz has the details. His report does contain some flash photography.
Never mind the drizzle. The stars will brighten things up. Ah, here they are, look. There's Helena Bonham Carter and Tom Ford with Julianne Moore. And isn't that Annette Bening from the movie The Kids Are All Right? It is the 2011 BAFTAs. In many ways, the last 12 months have been enormously successful for the UK film industry, and they were hoping that tonight, their big night, that there'd be plenty of home wins. And they weren't disappointed.
The winner of this year's Best Supporting Actress goes to Helena Bonham Carter for The King's Speech.
You know, I'm so used to losing, it's quite a strange feeling to win. But it feels very nice. But now, children, if you're watching, it's not about the winning.
And that was just the start.
The BAFTA goes to The King's Speech.
The King's Speech. The BAFTA for Supporting Actor, Geoffrey Rush, The King's.
And nobody was surprised by the winner of the Best Actor award.
Colin Firth for King's Speech.
I like coming here. Thank you, BAFTA.
There were no stories of fridges this time. It was his family he chose to thank.
The two people who are sitting over there, my own majestic mum and dad. I think it's as good a moment as any to thank them for absolutely everything. And also Livia and the whole family for remaining so steady, whether they're dealing with a dancing queen or a sometime king. Thank you very much.
But the Brits didn't have it all their own way. Natalie Portman won the Best Actress award for her performance as a paranoid prima ballerina in Black Swan. And the Best Director gong went to Facebook biopic The Social Network. There was a standing ovation for Sir Christopher Lee when he was awarded the BAFTA Fellowship. But tonight and the Best Film Award belonged to The King's Speech. Next up, the Oscars in a fortnight's time. Will Gompertz, BBC News.
You can see more on all of today's stories on the BBC News channel. Now on BBC One, it's time for the news where you are. From me and the team here, good night.
Good evening, I'm Mike Ramsden. A student teacher has been murdered in what police think was a robbery. Samuel Guidera, who was 24, was found collapsed on a street in Sydenham last night. Greg Mackenzie reports.
A quiet southeast London street transformed into a crime scene as specialist search teams try and piece together the events of last night. Samuel Guidera was stabbed after getting off a train at Penjee Station. His family say he was a hard-working man. The 24-year-old was training to become a teacher. Samuel was last seen staggering along Newlands Park Road about 9:30 last night. He later collapsed in the street. Members of the public rushed over to try and help him, but it was only when he was taken to hospital did doctors and the police realise Samuel had been stabbed.
We're pursuing a number of lines of inquiry at the moment. One of the principal lines of inquiry is that this is linked to a robbery. We need to do extensive searches. We're still looking for the murder weapon. We've got specially trained search teams here. We've got forensic experts at the scene and numerous other officers conducting inquiries in the area.
Many residents who were reluctant to appear on camera say they are saddened and shocked by Samuel's murder. Police say there have been a number of robberies in the area in the last 12 months. CCTV pictures obtained from Penjee train station show Samuel's last moments. He was seen leaving the station at 9:30, walking with a pink T-Mobile carrier bag. He was heading off to see friends, but never arrived. Police are appealing for anybody who may have seen him last night to contact them. No arrests have yet been made. Greg Mackenzie, BBC London News.
The Olympics Minister Hugh Robertson has confirmed West Ham will be allowed to install retractable seating in the Olympic Stadium when they take it over. It would solve the problem of fans having to watch matches from across a running track. Mr Robertson said the club would still have to fulfil its promise to host athletics events. On Friday, the Olympic Park Legacy Company rejected Tottenham Hotspur's bid to take over the stadium. Around 3,000 companies from more than 70 countries trade on London's financial markets every weekday. From tomorrow, traders in London could have the edge over markets elsewhere in Europe, as the stock exchange launches a new state-of-the-art computer system. It's designed to make transactions swifter. Matt Cook reports.
For the stock exchange, a bad start to the week. The bank rate hoisted from 5 to 7%.
It's over 300 years old, but in that time much has changed at the London Stock Exchange. The entire country's economy relies on it. Everything here is now governed by computers. And tomorrow, after months of delay, a new IT system goes online. For traders like Alpari UK, this crucial changeover is long overdue.
Technology is paramount within the industry. Trading has to be innovative, it has to be moving with the times. The LSE haven't necessarily done that, but now with this new system, it will put them back up with those other big names again and make them a powerhouse within this sector.
But the switch over to a faster, more efficient way of working does come with risks.
Back in November, when the LSE transferred their turquoise system over, it actually failed twice in a month. So security is going to be key initially, and reliability.
Economists say any teething problems could mean the reputation of the city as a whole suffers.
Markets nowadays are like running a Ferrari.